So I'm recording.
Be on your best behavior, everybody.
Okay, so everyone should start flooding, and I'm gonna get ready to stream us on Facebook.
Right.
How was your day, Jelani?
Oh, not bad. Can't complain.
That's good. You're high up.
Yeah, I'm trying to I'm not great with these camera angles, so it's probably about as good as we're gonna get. You know what I'm saying?
your friend Drew was like, I'm with the pager. I'm like, pager? Who's that pager?
Yeah, old school. Yeah, technology. I'm not into the technology. I got my pager, my cash money pager, you know.
He's showing his page is what he's doing. He's showing
Pay that lifetime fee, alive?
Back then, it still cost you like $28.99 a month for a pager, you know. That was big money back then, man. That was big money.
Are you still trying to do words with the pager?
Yeah.
I remember those
43770. That was hello.
Yeah. Gosh.
Well, thanks everybody for joining so far. We're just waiting a little bit before we start to stream to Facebook. We welcome you, and we're going to start in a few minutes. So thank you for joining. So just give us a little bit, and then we're going to start the show. Thank you again for joining. If you have any questions, please use the chat, and then we'll have some question and answer time where you can turn on your mic and speak if you like, or you could still use the chat box if you like. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. I'm just helping you admit people, Sean. Ooh. Camera was dropped. Okay. Hi, everybody. How was your guys' day today, everybody? Anybody want to turn on their mic and just give us a quick, how was your day? It's nice to see all your faces. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining. Are you starting to stream to Facebook?
Yes.
Because I won't be able to see it, right? Hi, Karen. Unless I go on my Facebook, right? Okay, so I think we're just going to wait one more minute and then we're going to get started. How does the Facebook look, Sean? Are we waiting? You're muted.
That's like the catchphrase for 2020.
I know it.
Yes,
Always
you can see
getting caught on that too.
It's a bit delayed, like but we're live.
Okay, great. So I'm going to get started. So thank you all for joining us tonight. It is going to be an amazing 2 hours. This is my second event, and I thank you all for joining and participating. My first event was celebrating Black women and their contributions to the Black community. Tonight, we will be doing the same for these 6 extraordinary Black men. Join me in giving them their flowers in life. Join me in giving them a round of applause as we thank you all for everything you have done and do for our community. Okay, I'm going to introduce our first panelist, and Bill Edwards. He's the 4th child of Lithwell. If I said the name wrong, did I say it wrong, Phil? You can correct me.
Call it Thule.
Lithwell and Reverend Edwards. Family learning, and community is what motivates him to keep growing. He has worn many hats in his many years of service: a teacher, a father, a community recreational programmer, and advocate for Sick Kids Children's Hospital, and a foster parent. As an early retiree, he's focused on continuing to reinvent himself, educate, guide his 2 sons, and trading in the Forex market. He has also become a dog owner who he calls Kobe.
Kobe
I had
made
to throw that in there. So Phil?
Yes, the floor is mine.
Yes.
Well, before I even speak, I actually wanted to give a shout out to Carrie and Chantal and the S.E.R.F team for hosting this awesome event. To the other gentlemen who are going to speak after me, I've met a few of you, and I'm going to listen and learn a few more things about each of you. Shout out to our ancestors who paved the way for us to be here. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a platform like this. And to the audience who's at home, and for those who are going to catch the recording of this, and those who are still to come, this is the energy that we share from the past, the present, and the future. Whenever I'm asked to give a conversation about myself, who I am, what's my path to get here, one of the key words that jumps in my mind is the word balance. So even a year ago, if you'd asked me to give this conversation, Carrie, I was busy at work, and I was putting so much of my energy into my job, into the community, into the people that I was serving, and I wasn't giving enough time for myself. And so if there's a word we want to walk away with, from me at least, it's balance, right? An analogy I have for that is anything that lacks balance will not function as designed. So if you think about a car, you have your 3 wheels and the 4th wheel is from a different set of tires, or you're running on a spare, or if you have a bed, everyone's had a bed that had a broken leg and you have to put like a cement block or something underneath it. Anything that you have that doesn't have balance, it's not going to run and function the same way. So try to find the best way to get balance into your life. That's what worked well for me. I'm in a stage of my life right now where I've found inner peace. In my earlier years, I was a baller. I played basketball, won a lot of clubbing, going out. Used to listen to the music of Juice Man, 105.5 every morning. Anywhere I was going, Juice Man was on the radio, whatever station he was on, I was plugging in. Went to high school with Drew. You hear a little more from him. We played ball back in the days together. And at that time, the measurement of what a man was, and I can only speak from my perspective, but the measurement of a man was pretty much if you played ball, if you were, some were dancers. The dance scene started off a lot of hip hop dancing, break dancing, and some were also rappers. I stayed away from anything else outside of that. There was guys who were also measured by their drunk game or measured by their ladies game. I just knew that for me, those are the measurements. And here I'm at the stage of my life where my measurement is based on inner peace. So I don't have to have the best shoes. The amount of money that I spent on shoe game, like all the things that we put our investments into the wrong places. If there's any, especially young people who are listening, find an older head, somebody who's a few years, 5, 10, 20 years ahead of you, and talk to them. What does it feel like to be at peace with yourself? Because that to me would be the best suggestion for anyone. We try to fit into all these circles. And there's going to be many chapters of our lives that are yet to be written. So even the chapter that you're in right now, the era that you're living in, it's only a moment. An example I have.
I don't want to cut you off, but you are already dropping some gems. Let's hold those for the conversation. So let's hold those, and so I can introduce the next panelist. But keep it in mind, Phil.
Got you.
Thank you so much. So the next panelist is Jonathan Jonathan O. Shaw, aka Juice Man Jonathan Shaw, is a pioneer in Toronto's DJing scene, entertaining audience for over 25 years. Jonathan has broadened his career by writing, voicing, and producing numerous commercials. He continues to be one of the most sought after artists in his field. Juice lives by music, sound, voice for every moment. Take it away, Juice.
You said it all. I don't have to say any more than that. I'm good.
I did it. I got it all. I got it all. I didn't
You got
miss
it all. There's nothing more for me to say. The only thing I will say is to those who are listening, every minute, every hour, make your pain your power. There's something that Phil and I learned at the same time, both being members of the Lion Circle, and that is your beliefs become your thoughts become your emotions become your actions become your results. If you change your internal beliefs about yourself, you change the results. And my belief about myself is I'm free. I'm free to do what I want. I'm free to be whoever I want to be, and the sky is the limit. And I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you. That's great. So my next panelist is Jelani, aka Jay Wise. He is the quintessential writer and MC. Jay Wise prides himself on delivering projects that touch on every facet of life from the perspective of a born rebel, with no fear of presenting himself as he truly is. He is back to his love of music with his new solo project called Shortcuts. Jay? Anything? Did I miss anything? You want to add anything?
That's pretty good. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be a part of this conversation. I know most of the brothers on the panel, or know of them, and it's I feel good to be in this group, to be included in this group. It's quite an honor. The only thing I would say, as far as intro, I'll do a quick plug. I also have a novel out. It's called Where Eagles Crawl and Men Fly. And you can get at me if you want copies. And yeah, aside from that, it's all good. And I would just say, I guess my little thing would be to say is that if you chase money, you never know where you'll end up. But if you chase your passion, money and other things like that will come.
Thank you. Thank you. So our next, we're missing one of our panelists, Curtis. He's going to be on his way. So when he does come, I will introduce him. So I'm going to move on to Dennis. And Pastor Dennis Martin has been a pastor teacher since 2004. His passion is to help people succeed in life, empowering individuals to live their best life now. He's a third generation pastor currently pursuing his bachelor's degree with the intention of attaining his doctorate in theology. He is currently serving as an associate pastor with Kingsway Community Life Center and sits on the board of directors as vice president. Take it away, Dennis.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you, Carrie, and the whole team for putting this thing together. It's extremely needed. It's extremely needed. Words is inadequate to express that. And I want to welcome and say hello to my fellow panelists. I'm humbled to be amongst you. And yeah, I'm basically the one guy that everybody comes to in terms of problems, in terms of getting things off their chest. And I thank God because he's given me the grace to do that. And I thank God because he wired me not to be judgmental. Sometimes, we don't realize a lot of people, they don't have a listening ear. And a lot of our young people, as soon as they start out in life, they get labeled. And I'm glad that we're here now to show them that, okay, then there are a group of men that's going to show you how to live life. And also not to be somebody to try to create a duplicate of myself, but I believe in discipleship. And I believe in discipleship and training a person that it's not about making a duplicate of yourself, but it's through relationship. You get to know a person and help them to know what's great about them and let that come out. And if there's anything I can encourage any young person or anybody, that's going to be watching this thing now or in the future, that is that, be your own voice and not somebody else's echo. I mean, you have a voice, you have an opportunity to, put your imprint in this world. And I hope and pray that whenever we leave this platform, that value will be added on every individual. I love people. I believe that it's our assignment to see everybody win. God has made us dependent on him and codependent on others. We're all community. So I'm excited about, what I'm going to hear. I'm going to be sharpened by what my fellow panelists are going to say. As iron sharpeneth iron, so does one continent sharpen another. So I'm prepared not only to speak, but to listen. The day we stop listening is the day we plateau.
You guys are all dropping the gems before we even start.
Oh,
Okay, slow it down, slow it down. Let me introduce you all first, and then we can get into it. But thank you so much, Dennis. Next one is Andrew Backus. He has been working with youth and families for over 20 years. He began his work as a youth counselor and project coordinator in the Jane and Finch crew. Dana Finch community. He co-developed and coordinated the gang exit program called Breaking the Cycle, which I loved back then. It was so needed and such a great program. I'm sorry to see that it's no longer around, but that's where we met. He then entered private sector as a consultant, where he continues to engage in his passion of helping people. He's now a senior managing manager with MCCSS. Tell me what that stands for again. I forgot to write it.
That's the Ministry of Children, Community, and Social Services. And really tonight I'm here as a member of the community and not necessarily representing the ministry right now. So real quick, I'm very grateful and humble to be here. I honestly feel I'm amongst family right now. We have faces here that I remember when I was a child in the neighborhood. So real quick, as a young man, I was incarcerated for some time too. And then upon my release, figured out that, it was something that I wanted to do, was to give back to the young people and help them navigate their life. I was lucky enough in the early 90s to be mentored by the late, great Mr. Dudley Laws. And Dudley, he had, years ago ingrained in my mind, he said, knowledge not shared is knowledge wasted. So that has been a key principle of my life. But I'm sure we'll get into more of that as the evening goes on. And I'm really looking forward to learning, just from everyone here. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you. And my next one, last but not least, is Curtis. He is a father, a friend, and a public speaker. His passion is Black history, and he has taken his passion to many different historical sites of importance to Black culture. He has organized countless groups on tours of museums that celebrate Black history. He continues to speak up on many forums on issues that impact the Black community. Currently, Curtis continues his advocacy work by working on a new government initiative to redefine the way Black families interact with PLCAS, which I am interested to hear more about that, Curtis. So if you want to give me just a little bit, and then we can pick it up more so during the night conversation. But thank you so much for joining. And before I give Curtis the floor, I just want to say that all of these men have made an impact in my life. Dennis is new to me, but definitely I don't think he understands that the connection that we already have, but we didn't know that we had. So I came to his church a while back and I didn't know him. I didn't know it was him. And then it was when I was reading his bio and I saw that the name of the church was, and I know his brother, is when I realized, wait, we have some connections, and it's such a small world that we're all connected. And so definitely I'm very welcome a new friend and a new male in my life, and I'm just appreciative of all you guys. Jelani, I worked with many moons ago, and that's how I met him. We're also from the same island, so we have that bond and connection, and he is an amazing guy, an amazing worker, and we've just become friends, and I just appreciate him so well. Also, Phil, I've known for many moons as well. All of these guys I've pretty much worked with in some shape or form, and just continued on the friendship throughout the years because they're just such amazing guys. I mean, for Jonathan, I started, helping him on the radio when he was on the radio. What was it again? CHRY?
Yeah, that was like what, 90, 96, 97?
Yeah, because I had just had my first child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like months old.
So yeah, I was helping Juice and I loved it and I loved him. I used to listen to him all the time and I was so excited to help him with his program. And we just kept on going from there. Andrew's the same, worked with him in the community. And I always said to him, I want to work with you. I was always pushing for him to, be a part of the program that I was working on or anything that I had going. I was like, I want Drew involved. And, Curtis, I met, where did we meet, Curtis? I don't even remember how long
CHRY.
it's been.
I think you and it might have been CHRY because Jonathan, that's where I met Jonathan.
Yeah.
But I know that you and I, didn't you go on one of my runs to the museum in Detroit? Didn't you go on one of the trips? No?
No.
I'm not sure then.
It's been so long that I don't even remember when I met you, but I know I met you.
Yeah.
And I know we've stayed in contact and stayed in touch all these years. And I love his wife, his family, just amazing. And I definitely always wanted to go on the trips, but I kept on missing them. And then COVID hit and then everybody got busy. Juice does trips too. And I always wanted to go on one of his culture trips too. So all of you have been a part of my life. And when I was putting my panel together, your names were the first names that came to mind because of all the contribution you guys have done to the community. So I'm going to push it to you, Curtis, and just tell us a little bit more about yourself and about the initiative with the PLCAS, because I think that is so necessary. And I'm so glad that you're the man on the team.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it light with respect to myself. I'm not one to sort of talk about myself much, and I think your summary was more than adequate for me. With respect to the work that I'm doing, it's a pilot project, and the goal is to really sort of partially part of the goal is to try and determine whether or not there's been some cultural context that's been missed when a Black family becomes involved with PLCAS. Sometimes it can be something as simple as, a child brings bun and cheese to school 3 days in a row, and a teacher thinks that a parent is lazy and doesn't recognize that it's a staple in our community. And so it's sort of, doing a little bit of trying to determine whether or not the family is receiving the right kind of support in that regard. And then also the goal is to connect families with Black community resources and supports. And the goal is to sort of wrap around them in a more traditional, it takes a village to raise a child approach, to try and help ease them away from that sort of government intervention and have a more holistic, us-centered approach.
Oh, nice. When did this initiative start?
Last January, so just over a year.
Really new.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you for sharing that. And if anybody has any more questions in regards to that, put it in the chat and Curtis will be willing to answer it.
Absolutely.
So let's get into our question and answer period. And I'm just going to throw the first question I'm just going to throw it out there, and then I would like all of you men to chime in on the questions. So Phil, I'm going to go with you first. It is suggested that men can sustain healthier male friendships than women and their friendships. Why do you think that is?
Oh, wow. You're going to put me on a women topic.
Yeah, I'm throwing you in there already.
You know what? Actually, the perfect way to answer this, I'm going to speak from I. It's a safe way. And I'm a man, so I can speak to men relationships. A lot of our men relationships are based on tangent. Sorry? Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry, just before I go into that question, Phil, I forgot, and how can I forget to introduce my beautiful co-host, Chantel Sadachel. So I'm so used to her talking with me. So I'm just like, oh, she's going to pop in at any moment. So I totally forgot. But no, I didn't forget you, Shani. But Chantel Sadachel, she is my friend. And also we work together in the community. And she works right now with, I'll throw it to her. She can explain herself. But she helps me out with all these, getting all you guys together. Panels together. So I really appreciate her. And thank you so much. And there you go, Chantel.
Oh, okay.
Just say whatever you want about.
Okay. We've been friends for a very long time. I know majority of the men on this panel from way back in the day, from Finch, and just other realms. So I'm excited about this event that you're doing. I'm excited to work with you again. I'm definitely the tech woman behind this. So if there's any, thank you to the people that are here with us today, and for those watching on Facebook. If there's any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat box here or on Facebook, and we'll definitely try our best to get to them. I'm excited, and thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Carrie, and thank you all of the men.
Much. And I wouldn't be able to do all of this without her help. So I definitely can never forget her. And she will also be helping me out with the question and answer period as well. And she'll be monitoring the chats as well. So she's wearing many hats tonight. So you have to applaud her too. But let me repeat the question, Phil, so that you can go again. So it is suggested that men can sustain healthier male friendships than women and women's friendships. Why do you think that is? And do you agree with that statement, or do you disagree? So go ahead, take it.
No,
and it's going to be for all you men, so think about it.
Yeah, no, I'll be brief. I'm going to say that for me, I would agree in the sense that the relationships that I've had with most of the guys growing up have been based on physical, tangible things. So we're basketball buddies, or we were working on a project. It has to do with most of the physical, very rarely emotional. So even if I didn't like a guy, I could still play ball with him. Perhaps I didn't agree with his lifestyle, or he didn't agree with me. It really didn't have to. Our relationships and our friendships sometimes don't have to do with likability. It's just, do we have things in common? Are they concrete? Is that guy an asset or a tool for me? Hey, and that's what it's been. So those friendships sometimes have remained just because of that physical connection.
But do you think that males are able to sustain it better than females? Because that's pretty much what the
question is. Yeah, so pretty much, absolutely. That's kind of what I was saying. I mean, in the sense that the majority of guys do maintain those friendships. I mean, I still play ball with guys that I played with since I was 13, 14, right? And those friendships connect and stay, not necessarily because I like the way, or he said something about me, or, he said a rumor. We don't really get down like that, but I can speak for me. But the majority of it is based on, all right, we have that common thing. We see each other twice a week, whether it's playing ball, whether those who are in the music industry, or whatever connection or asset that person brings to the table. Sometimes it's not based on, the emotion side, and sometimes that perhaps is what drives a lot of the female friendships and relations.
Okay, take it away. Anybody else?
Phil, if male friendship is so important, how come you haven't linked me to play ball? I haven't seen you forever.
You know what? That's going to be next, man. Absolutely.
All right. So I'll just throw in really quickly that what I've observed with respect to male friendships as opposed to, the way women tend to get together, I've noticed, and this isn't necessarily with respect to how long the friendships last, but I've noticed, it seems to me, that in my adult years that I'm not able to connect with men the same way women are able to connect with each other. So I find that women seem to find that common ground really quickly. They can be in a social setting and just, oh, I like your hair. Oh, I like, and immediately begin some dialogue and connect. And there seems to be a bit more of a seamless way of joining friendships that way. I think men tend to sort of click up a little bit more. So like we have our boys that we went to school with or we've known forever. And that core group is often hard to penetrate by an outsider. So when you go to a social setting and you don't necessarily know a bunch of people and you walk up to a bunch of men that are there and they're all laughing about, what they did in the high school days and stuff, it just seems like the point of entry is a little bit more difficult to navigate than it is for women. But that's just really sort of observational. I don't know what anyone else's thoughts are about that.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to do. You want to go?
No, go ahead, John.
Okay. I've known Curtis for a long time, and I know him as Nova. And I would say that real recognizes real, because I look at it as though, when it comes to men especially, reason, season, lifetime. So we got our friends that we go partying with. We have friends that are our boys. We got friends that, we get together because we're in the same group. But generally speaking, I may know of somebody who knows you, but because they know you and whatever the case may be, I'm gonna watch you for a minute and be like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden we gel. Like, it doesn't take men that long to just start vibing. Doesn't matter what it is, because generally when men get together in any way, shape, or form, there's a reason. You know, as you know, as Phil said, we're either playing ball. I met Phil through the Lions Circle. I met Nova playing music at C.H.Y. I met Jay Wise at Flow 93.5. But I knew of Jay Wise years before that with Soul Controllers. So when you get together with people, there's a synergy that goes along with guys that you don't have to talk for years. But all of a sudden you see that person, it's like bang, it's like nothing happened. It's never this, oh well, you know, like we don't get into the isms schisms. We don't have time for that because we got work to do, right? And I'm talking men. I'm not talking boys. Boys get into that foolishness, but men have work to do. Men are always doing work, right? I remember something Jelani said to me a long time ago, and when I was a ballhead, JY said, "When you grow your locks, the world will look at you differently." I cannot tell you how he said that to me 20 years ago, and it's probably the most real. 20 years ago. That is the most real statement anybody has ever said to me that I remember 20 years later. So Jay Wise, thank you for that.
Wow.
And now you have all the locks and I have none.
We can't have everything. We can't have Dennis. I know you. Did you want to say something? And then Drew.
Sure.
And then
as for me myself, sometimes it's not really about gender, but I do agree with the first person.
He's lagging.
We tend to bond from a common place. Am I still lagging?
Sorry, Dennis, you were lagging, so we missed what you had started off saying.
I apologize.
Is he frozen?
No, you're good. You're good.
No,
now.
you're good now.
Okay.
Okay. Nice to know that I'm good. But
okay.
yeah.
Okay, can you start over because we missed it because you were lagging?
Sure, for sure.
Okay.
So I don't believe sometimes, understanding the question, they want to know the difference, but sometimes it's not about the gender. Sometimes, you know, it's all about the season where I'm at and how that person came in, why the relationship is not as sustained as long as it is. With men, though, it doesn't require much. For me personally, that's one of the greatest gifts I think I have. It doesn't take much for me to make a friend. And as long as we're in a place of respect, it's sustainable, I think, with men. And if we don't see eye to eye, but our commonality is basketball, well, on the back, else as an enemy. So I don't think when it comes down to gender, I don't think a woman can hold a relationship more sustainable than a man. I don't think a man can hold a relationship more strongly than a woman. I think it just comes down to the dynamic of the relationship. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree with everyone. And one of the thoughts I was thinking is you know, how deep rooted, you know, the relationship was formed. You know, sometimes that speaks to the sustainability of the relationship. You know, like for example, sometimes, you know, if people were to share a near-death experience together, you know, that can sometimes form a bond for a very long time. So it was just something that I was thinking about in terms of how deep rooted, or you know, even those commonalities were formed. You know, so sometimes that could determine the sustainability of the relationship, regardless of gender.
Okay, thank you. Jelani, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I can't really say whether men or women sustain longer relationships. So I won't talk to that part of it. Because I think, you know, I don't think those things go along gender lines so much. Maybe they do. I haven't done the science, but I kind of doubt it. But the one thing I will say is that I notice as a man, the relationships that I form tend to be more shallow generally, in terms of like most of the people I interact with, and that the real long-lasting friendships I had I usually made them somewhere around the age of like 13, 14, 15. And then, or people that I spend a long period of time with after that, for whatever reason, whether it's usually like work related or music related, something arts related, and then, you know, community work. And over time, we formed that bond. But I think I agree with the person who said most of our really lasting friendships form in like those years where you're finding yourself, you know, 13, 14, 15, 16, where you're deciding who you're going to be and how you're going to live. Most of my friendships, my real deep friendships started then. And I noticed as I get older, the circle does get a little tighter, but it's not with any animosity or hard feelings. It's just as time goes on, the people that you need to be around, you tend to figure out who they are a little even sharper than when you started.
Thank you, Jelani. I just wanted to touch up on what Jonathan said in regards to men and just the difference between boys. So I'm just, because there's also this stigma that comes out, not a stigma, but a stereotype, probably mostly by females, but they say their men treat their boys better than they treat their women. Do any of you gentlemen feel that that is more reflection of age versus, and maybe that function in the relationship? And how do you disagree with this statement? And it's to anybody.
Do men treat their boys different from their women? That was the
Yes, like,
statement.
yeah.
They're supposed to. My wife don't want me to treat her like my son, and my sons definitely don't want me to treat them like my wife. And two, should not look at either relationship in competition, because they're both in different positions to me. My wife is somebody who sees me eye to eye. I trust her. She sees my blind spot. That's where we're equal. She's a complete product. I'm a complete product. We come together. It's not two half people coming to make call. If somebody is not sure of themselves, they should not be in a relationship. You can't force somebody to get to know you and you don't know yourself yet. But my children, I would give attention to them because they're my sons, and I have 4 boys, and it takes a lot because you can't treat them all the same. I have one wife.
Sorry, so it wasn't then their children. It was actually like their intimate partner. Like you treat, like if a girl's complaining, she's like, "Oh, you treat your boys better than you treat me." That type of statement.
Oh, that even goes more further. Trust me, my wife don't want me to treat her like my best friend. And I said that one time to someone. It was very controversial. And I said that I do have a best friend. And when I got married, I made him my best man. But my wife is more than my best friend. When you consider the thing that she endured just to be my wife and the journey that we will go together on life, there are some things I won't share with my best friend because he may not be a part of that journey, but my wife would. There's no way that we're supposed to be going the opposite direction. So every woman should aspire, to my opinion, to see themselves more than my best friend, because you may look at the practices, but the position is different. Your wife is in a different position. That's what makes the relationship different. So if she may seem like, okay, she's probably different, or I give more attention or whatever to my friends or whatnot, don't look at how I handle them. They're in a different place, and it's every man's responsibility to make sure that their wife feels loved.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
He hit it home still. I don't even know what to say after that one, but you know what it is? I have to say that I don't pillow talk in my mind and brethren. See, so first and foremost, that's a whole right. That's a whole another level. That pillow talk, who shares that pillow beside you, that there should be no other friendship that can share that. Whether that's my laughter, my tears, my thoughts, my business ideas, all the things that before I even put it out to the rest of the world, that should flow through her first.
Exactly.
And I have colleagues of mine that I do flow things with as well, But in the same sense, that's not the same energy, right? The mistake that's happening, though, I think where the question may even come from, there are many men who haven't hit that level of manhood yet. So when you're in that stage where it's all about my homies and my boys, and if the ladies are getting treated like that, that's because he also doesn't see her like that yet. Mm-hmm. So that's in my era of life. I've been there before where, yeah, she hasn't hit that plateau in my life yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm only going to give her the percentages of Phil because she's not there yet. But from we reach that pillow, and that life is in that mode, just like my pastor brother said, it's a next level, dude. You can't test that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'd add to what the man them are saying is that it's easy when you live with someone to get caught up in the everyday minutia of making the house run. You know what I mean? So it's easy to get caught up in groceries and bills and kids and this needs to get fixed and that needs to get moved and all that kind of stuff. It's easy to really get caught up in that. And then when you're around other people, your friends, it's just about having fun. So it's easy to look at those two things and get caught up in the, oh, well, it looks like this person is having more fun over here than they do here. And I think what's really important in avoiding that kind of situation is really making sure that you and your woman have fun, that you guys have times when it's not just about paying bills and, you know, just making the house run. You have to make sure that the two of you are having fun together, doing other things that are not kid related, not bills and house related, but are just, you know, this type of stuff that y'all did that made you end up living together in the first place. And so whether that's vacation or just taking out a little time every week to watch, you know, a show that she likes or watch a show that he likes that you might not necessarily watch by yourself. I know there's shows that I watch that if it was for me alone, I would never watch them. But at the same time, it's time to spend with your woman. You know what I mean? You'll watch it and catch two joke and, you know what I mean? And just make it be something where you guys are having fun. So that's all I would add to that. Is it's easy to get caught up in the everyday of just living life. And
thank you. Anybody else want to take that, or I think everybody
just real quick? Yeah, I agree with Jelani 100%, and with Phil and the others too. It's in my opinion, it's two different plateaus. You know, it's two different plateaus, and you know, your wife is on one, and then your friends is on the other. But to like it basically comes down to maturation. You know, for those who struggle to you know, to kind of draw that line between the two, I think it's more of a maturation thing, and you know, to really understand the relationship you have with your woman, your wife, or what have you, is to really have gone through that journey with them and the growth that's involved and that sort of thing. I'm lucky, you know, I've been married now for 23 years and I know my wife.
Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, and I know my wife since we were 8 years old. And at the end of the day, she knows everything about me, good, bad, the ugly. You know what I mean? So just like what everyone else mentioned, she knows a whole lot about me that other people don't know, and these are conversations I wouldn't have with other people. So it's a really, you know, receive that relationship in a way that it's meant to be, you know, and just kind of and keep on building and growing and that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's really coming down to, as the gentleman said, like you got to make sure that the other, meaning your wife, does not only see you having fun with the guys. Mm-hmm. And when you're with her, it's all about what bill needs to be paid, who got to go to the doctor. Okay, as soon as you walk in the house, when I walk in the house, I don't know why everybody thinks it's like it's instant playground. I don't know. The house gets loud, and me and my wife will joke around. Sometimes I'm a pastor, and sometimes I'll play music. I'll play some Barris. I love Barris. Don't judge me. I'll play. I'm a fan of reggae. And sometimes we're in the kitchen. I'll dance, but I'm a shy one. My wife will go crazy. I'll just shy away. Like we have fun. Mm-hmm. And also on top of that, I make sure it makes two hands work. It makes the two hands clap. Because as long as I make her feel secure in our relationship. She's getting her attention, and it comes naturally, organically. This is not something that, it's something organically, it just happens. It's just me. She doesn't have to worry about when I need time for myself.
Anybody
you know
else?
What's important, you know what's important? The man them have to respect that too. If they're real friends, they'll be so happy when a man finds himself a wife.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They'll be very happy for their brethren when he finds himself a wife and he says, yo, man, I'm not around as much anymore. They should be, yo, that's the goal of a man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to add to that. There's a level of intimacy that you should have with your partner, your wife, that you'll never have with your boys. Like I'm you know what I mean? Like whether it be your wife, your girlfriend, you know, your empress, your queen, whatever you want to refer to her as, there's a level of intimacy that you share with that person and that person only. And I remember when I was married, when I remember I had the house phone, and I'm like, the house phone has not rang for like a month. And I'm like, my boys used to call me all the time. And I'm like, is the phone even working? Because as Phil said, they leave you alone.
No,
They leave you alone because you're married now. You know, they you know, they'll check you. Like when Caravana comes along, they'll call you on the phone and say, hey, let's go wind up tea time, right? Let's go play some ball. You know, the football game, they'll call you for that, wrestling, whatever. But I mean, outside of that, your woman, your queen is everything to you. That's who you're building with. That's who you're sharing your intimacy with. I mean, my grandfather said something to me that I'll never forget, and I say it at weddings, and I always say this: what happens on a pillow between two people is nobody's business. That's your intimate time with your partner. And I'm sorry, but I mean, you know, my boys are never going to be on that level. As much as I love them, as much as, you know, we've been together for years, your girl, your wife, whatever, that's who you're building with. That's who your future is with. That's who you're going to have generational wealth with. Not necessarily your boys. You may be in business with your boys on some venture or whatever the case, but your partner is your partner.
Very good. Curtis?
Yeah, absolutely right. Oh, I was just going to say that I just want to acknowledge the people are really feeling this conversation, and they're definitely the men and the women in the room. They definitely agree 100% with what's saying, and definitely it's about the balance and the maturity level. So they're loving this conversation. Thank you, guys.
And
Curtis, you want to add?
Sorry, real quickly, I see my big brother Owen in the audience, and I just want to pick him up. I see you, brother.
Yes, Owen is good people. I have to hail him up too.
Yeah.
Him in a minute.
Big up Owen.
I echo the sentiments that you know my brothers have shared here. I also noticed somebody had put a hand up earlier, but I can't remember who it was. So maybe if people have questions,
me by accident. No, that was me. I was trying to give it a
no. Somebody else had put a hand up as well. But yeah, if you wanna, it wasn't a clap. It was just a hand. But if somebody wants to put questions in the chat, we can do it that way as well.
Yeah, that was my slip.
Thank you. If you guys have questions, if the participants have questions you want to add, if you want to take your mic off and ask a question once, you can do that as well. Just like we'll give you this time to do so. So if there's anybody who wants to jump in and make a comment or a question right now, we can do so. Just unmute yourself and do so before I go into the next question.
Miss Frederick.
Okay, so nobody?
Yeah, Miss Frederick had something.
Okay, Miss Frederick, you want to unmute yourself and then you can
yes,
talk.
I did have something to say, but I lowered my hand as
Okay, with you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you guys were hitting the points as you guys were speaking, so I lowered my hand as the conversations were going. But I just had to add with the boys, like the friends. And can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
It's chipping in and out, but it might be my computer, so I don't know.
Okay, so I did have something to add, but I was mentioning that my questions or like my points were being answered or hit on as everyone was speaking, so I just lowered my hand.
Okay.
But I was just agreeing with like the prioritizing and like relationships. Like if you're like, I don't believe necessarily like you should be like friends and your wife should be on the same level necessarily like that. I believe, like, yes, your friends are your friends. Your spouse, your partner is your partner. That's your life partner. You're trying to start a life with them. You want to grow with them. I don't necessarily think that like you want to like start your life or grow with your friends in that kind of way. So like I do think, like, yes, making your wife or your spouse or your partner, like if it's a female, vice versa, right? Or for the man, it's good to make your partner feel secure, because it's just like you're not going to be in a relationship with your boys. You're going to be in the relationship with the woman who's your mother of your kids, you know, like the provide, like that's your partner. So yes, it's best to make that person number one. And yes, there are ways to differentiate between the two, like, yo, that's my boy, I'm gonna go chill, or yo, I'm gonna go chill with so and so, whatever. But at the end of the day, she should be number one, or your partner should be number one in that sense, meaning like, hey, I want to start my life with you, and this is the person, you know, like I'm being serious about, not my boys that I'm gonna go play ball with. Like in that way.
Definitely. Thank you so much for
I
adding.
also see that Phyllis has her hand up. Did you want to join, say something?
Absolutely. I just want to say this is an amazing conversation. I am so happy to be part of this. Carrie, congratulations on all the gentlemen. Guys, you are just so hitting every single point. Just out to the ballpark. Love it. I do have a question though. I had a great deal about the boys and the girls and the friends. I want to know how family and in-laws play that, like how do they fit into that same explanations that you've given? Just touch upon the family and the in-laws, because I know in relationships that tend to become a little bit tricky to navigate. So I would love to hear what your take on how y'all do that. Deal with the families and the in-laws and the mama-in-law.
I know that whole you know, friction with the mother-in-law thing is like this running joke that we've heard in like every other stand-up routine since, you know, Comic View went off the air. But I think that, yeah, a little throwback reference for those of you who are over the age of this many. But yeah, so I think that really, like, my perspective is you should be embracing your partner's parents in the same way you embrace, like, if they have children prior to you coming into the relationship, right? You should be loving those children as if they're your own. You should be treating them as if they're your own. There should be no delineation between, you know, who's biologically yours and who isn't. I think the same rule applies to the parents. I don't think there should be friction with parents. You can't necessarily you know, determine how somebody else is going to view you or see you. Someone else's parents might not be a huge fan of you, but that doesn't mean that you don't treat them with the utmost respect. And you don't, I mean, to me, really, you treat them the same way you would treat your own parents.
I totally agree. And I think what you guys are all saying is so true. And it's the levels. I think it's the maturity levels. So it's like when you get married probably earlier on, which Drew, you got married pretty early on in life. And now you're still together how many years later? You are not the same person you were 20 years ago and into your marriage that you are now. So all these wisdom that you've acquired, it's this is what's sustaining. So I definitely want these gems to be dropped for the young people who are starting relationships. And this is why I wanted to bring us together. So I'm going to go into
there's just one more person, Karen Samuel, who also had her hand up.
Want to say something?
Yeah.
On this question?
I'm not sure, but her hand's up.
No, I was going to ask the men because they seem a little bit more mature.
Hang on 1 second, Karen. If somebody can mute their mic because I hear background. So so we can hear Karen a little better. Thank you. Okay, go, Karen.
I was going to ask the men because they seem a little bit more mature. For the younger ones, I know growing up, I had in situations where you would have younger guys and they take you on a date, then you see their friends. And now hearing them speak, and it could be the same ones that are on this panel, they're older now and they're about prioritizing with their wife. So is it that you guys should be talking more? Because I'm seeing it now with the younger ones, my niece's daughter, they're seeing the same thing where their boys are, their friends now, everyone has a friend, is saying, okay, they're supposed to be going out, but they're bringing their friend along. Do maybe these guys need to be mentored by you guys to tell them, no, to start prioritizing earlier? Is that what it is? Because you guys are older now, but did you do the same thing?
I think, sorry, I don't want to, I know I jumped in on that last one, but I'll be quick here. I think we got to consider that we're living in a different day and age, right? Our ability to socialize, to connect with people is vastly different in 2021 than it was, 20 years ago when we were young men getting into relationships. People have the ability now to engage and build a relationship. Like somebody can be sitting next to somebody in a room full of people and sending text messages and like socializing and building and growing. There was a time when you couldn't get to know somebody like that. So I think it's really important to consider that people have a different level of access to each other, and they're also growing up in a culture where they have access to everything, right? They don't gotta hope that their parents got an Encyclopedia Britannica set and they hope that they pull out their phone, hit Google, you can find out anything you want to hit at any time, bless you, at any time. And I mean, even for something as simple as McDonald's, like, I remember when my kids were young and they wanted McDonald's. You see a McDonald's when you see a McDonald's. Now Uber Eats right to your door, right? So the culture and the mentality whereby you have access to everything you want at any time really impacts the way that people navigate their relationships. And so even with the mentorship, even with our perspectives, it's the way that we have social media, the way we're engaging with social media and our instant culture is really impacting things, I think.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. So one of the threat to men's health is loneliness. It's also the most challenging problem for men to admit. Some would suggest it's because men aren't good at being vulnerable, particularly with their male friends. What do you think why do you think that is? How do men show vulnerability with their friendships? It's a two-part. Who wants to jump with this one? I haven't heard from Jelani, so Jelani, you take this one first. Putting on spot. You want me to read it again?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So one of the threats to men's health is loneliness. It's also the most challenging problem for men to admit. Some would suggest it's because men aren't good at being vulnerable, practically with their male friends. Why do you think that is? And how do men show vulnerability with their friendships? So
yeah, I think as far as vulnerability, as a man, you learn growing up that that's a dangerous place to be in, as far as putting yourself out there. So I can understand why people might say that. I think in terms of, as you get older, and vulnerability has to be something that you choose the time and the place and the person that you're going to be vulnerable with. Because really, we're not socialized to show the cracks or the chinks in our armor. And a lot of, when you're young, a lot of the time with your friends is basically about proving just how strong you are. But I think as you get older, who are the people that you can be vulnerable with or around. And I know for a lot of men, if that's going to be anybody, it's going to be their woman. And if not, it's just about, sometimes it's not so much about, we don't really approach things from a being vulnerable perspective. We more approach things from a problem solving perspective. So I have friends that, if I'm struggling with something, I can call them and say, yo, I'm having this issue, yo, what do you think? And, we approach it from that perspective, as opposed to like a perspective of coming to somebody like, oh, I'm sad or I'm hurt or I'm this. It's more, I have this issue and it's bugging me. I'm trying to figure it out. And then we can approach it from that way. So I think as far as vulnerability, it's more about problem solving. And when it's time to show vulnerability, you have to be very intentional and very specific about who you show what to.
Mhm.
And you know, to add on to Jelani too, is there's also an element of culture and how culture plays into it. And to use a word from Jelani also is the way we're socialized or programmed, and how does a culture come into that? It's pretty much similar to the stigma, like talking about mental health in, let's say, in a West Indian family. You know, my family's from St. Vincent, you know, and the last thing that I could do is have a conversation with my father, my uncles, and say, you know, I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling anxiety or things like that. So that speaks about the vulnerability. But one of the things when you mentioned loneliness that I thought about is really and truly the most important relationship that one has is with their self. You know, really understanding themselves, loving themselves, and things like that, because it's really tough to do that for anyone else without having that relationship with yourself.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Drew, can I jump in on that actually? So I know a lot of things we deal with in our culture is based on a lot of wordplay. And I've substituted the term loneliness for solitude. And when you put yourself into a state of solitude, especially when it's by a choice, because that word loneliness, you know, that loner, that by yourself. And so as a man, you know, let's let this conversation start getting a little real, everybody. Get comfortable. As a man, you don't want to tell your boys, yo, it's been 3 months since I had a woman. Like those are conversations that are very hard to get into. And so you end up sleeping with randoms because that term loneliness doesn't clue in. But when you hit the mature stage and you realize, all right, let me enter a state of solitude because I don't want to give myself to just ever and anybody. It's a transferring and it's a stage and it does come with maturity.
Yeah.
Let
I
me jump
think
in.
also, oh, sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You go first, and I'll go after you're done.
Okay. Well, I think with men with loneliness, first of all, everybody gets to that stage. And I won't define loneliness, okay, I'm sitting in a room by myself, because it's not all the time you're gonna have people around you. But when I hear the word loneliness, I sense it as an issue going on in a person's life. Nobody knows about it, and you're trying to deal with it, and you're finding it hard to get your head above the water. And sometimes as men, we tend to be as people that try to fix things ourselves. But you need to understand that you have relationships. You got to make sure, like I tell people, who's your Peter, who's your James, and who's your John. Jesus had 12 disciples walking with him all the time. But there was a point in the Bible when he went on a mountain where he had to expose who he really was. And they called that section of the Bible the Mount of Transfiguration. He didn't bring the whole 12. He only brought his main 3. And I think as men, we need to determine who is our Peter, James, and John. Whereas when I'm going through something, everybody who you have in your social network, and sometimes we need to tell some of our young people, everybody in your social, they love you, they care about you, but there are some people who can't handle certain things about you. There are sometimes there's people that, yeah, you have some people that you can tell them you're going to do something and it's great. And maybe they're the type of friend you share that to when it's done, because they're great to celebrate with, but they're not the type of person you would tell, because they may, not motivate you to do it because they're not that type of person anyway. So sometimes you have to look at your social network and who do I have here? Who's the person that I go to when I'm like this? Who is the person I go to when I need, some financial help? Because we all hit that rock hard. We all hit that spot sometimes. And especially as men, we have to understand that none of our situations are as unique as we like to play it off, or how we emotionally feel like. There's another person in your social network that probably going through the same thing too. So sometimes we tend not to share our problems because we don't know who to share them with. But you got to know who's your Peter, James, and John. When you're going to the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus showed who he really was. And sometimes there was 12. 9 of them stayed.
Okay.
3 came. And you got to know who is yours. I would say that to every young man, every young sister, you got to know who's your Peter, James, and John.
Okay.
Know who they are. So when you get into those situations, you know who to go to.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Curtis,
Can I
Jonathan's next. Go ahead.
Okay. I can look at this 2 ways, and I agree, but I'm going to disagree in a way. Too many men, especially Black men, suffer in silence because we've been all taught toxic masculinity.
Yes.
We've all been taught, you know what I mean? You don't fall in love, you stand up in love. You know what I mean? We're all taught to be strong, not to cry. What y'all cry for? What y'all cry for? Right? Don't do that thing. And it's toxic. We don't go to the doctor to check up ourselves because we're always taught to provide. So we can be sick. We can be suffering with an illness. We can be suffering from stress. You know what I mean? That's why a man is drinking. That's why a man is smoking. That's why a man is taking drugs. That's why a man is carousing. That's why a man is doing all these different things because he doesn't feel the ability to be vulnerable to anybody. But you have to take off that armor. You have to be vulnerable, no matter what you want to say. And I mean, one of the things that I love, and I'll say this about the group I was in, the Lions Circle, along with Phil, is they taught us as men to take off that armor. They taught us to be open and transparent, not with everybody, but with the people who, quote unquote, you break bread with. And I always say that my family is not the people who I share bloodlines with. It's the people who I have broken bread with, because I don't break bread with everybody. There's members of our family we don't like. We just don't like them. We don't want them in our house. We don't want them in our place. We don't want nothing to do with them, right? And they don't even look at us like family. You know what I mean? I have brothers and sisters who don't look at me as family, but we're brothers and sisters. But I have men. I mean, even Nova. Nova is like, Curtis is like my brother from another mother. He's the godfather of my son, right? There's nobody else outside of Curtis and the other guys in DEF CON. I used a guy named Paul to be the godfather for my son because I wanted male role models for them. Curtis can come to me. We don't see each other for 2.5 years and we can sit down and just talk as boys. And it's like no time passed. Even in this book that I pulled out, this is a book that I always read. There's a Laws of Power. And this book talks about crush your enemies and this and that, whatever the case may be. But chapter 18 says, do not build a fortress to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Even in a book of power, it tells you that not to isolate yourself against yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And this is a book. This is a book where men who on Bay Street read and deal with problems when it comes to finances and all these other sort of stuff. So if they can write about it, we as Black men are sitting here like this and saying, "No, man, we can't tell people about them things. No, man, we can't." No, man, you have to be vulnerable sometimes. I suffered from mental illness. I suffered from depression. You know why? Because I haven't DJ'd in over a year. I'm here by myself. I'm in this house. I'm like, okay, well, hey, I cleaned up everything. I got rid of everything I need to do. I'm here by myself. What am I doing? What am I doing by myself? You know what I mean? You call up who you call up, whatever the case may be. You check on everybody else. You've helped the broken birds. You've made other people fly. You've made other people rich. Now it's time when you are dealing with things.
Yeah.
And straight up and down, you would wish somebody would actually when they call you on the phone and say, "Juice, you good?" Yeah, man, I'm good.
Yeah, and it's actually true. Like when you share your story, you shouldn't be silent about whatever it is that you're going through, or whoever, men, women, anybody. Like when you share your story, that can help somebody who is feeling, like you said, lonely, isolated, open up and like, oh my gosh, there's other people that feel that way too. Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. And they can feel empowered to speak up as well.
And check on your people. I mean,
that's big. Check on your people.
There's people out there that I have in my peer circle that I say, if you don't hear from me, make sure you check on me, right? And I also had to tell people, here's what I need from you. And sometimes I don't even know what I need. Sometimes it might be just, you know what, just sit down here. Just sit down here. Let me fill out this form. Just sit down right here. Let me fill out this form because that's what I'm struggling with right now. That's all I need you for. But if you're sitting there, you know what I mean? Time passes and you're stuck and you're suffering. And the help that you need is right there. And you were just too proud to deal with it. That's just toxicity. Toxicity will kill you, no matter what you want to say. Stress will kill us. High blood pressure kills us.
It's so funny. I feel like we don't like the saying, like, ask and you shall receive. Like, I don't feel like we're actually taking that in and actually, you know, like there's so much help out there and a lot of us just don't use it. Like, why?
And I
We
think
like
that's
suffer in silence.
to follow up and tie into my masculinity question, which you're touching upon in your discussion, Juice. I'm gonna throw this question out there, and it's all about Black masculinity. So when I say Black masculinity, what comes to mind? And do you feel there's a difference when you were growing up to the present day? And Juice, if you can, because you were already touching upon it, and then we will move it on to the other panel members and then the audience.
I was told that a lot of things that I like to do, and I'm just speaking for me, were not manly. I was told that some of the things that I enjoyed to do were not necessarily things that men do. Now, the issue is this. I'm 52, going to be 53 years old, right? I can rug hook, macrame, sew, wash, cook, bake, clean house, clean toilet, do all those things, right? Because my mom made sure that when I go out on my own, I'd be able to do those things, that I wouldn't have to, let's say, depend on somebody else to do those things. Would it be nice if somebody did those things for me? Fine, right? I took ballet dancing. I did jazz. I did acro. I did all those things. I've never really injured myself playing sports. Why? Because I'm flexible. But I had to learn how to do those things. When everybody else was doing their thing out on the road, I was playing the piano. And I had to learn how to do those things. And again, all those things were the sexy things. I wasn't out there playing basketball. I wasn't out there doing all this other sort of stuff. But I had a well-rounded life growing up. But again, it wasn't seen as masculine. Now that I'm an adult, people praise me for the things I did as a child because now I'm a well-rounded adult. I see the world differently. You know what I mean? I'm a Renaissance man. But when you're a kid and you're growing up, you're a nerd. You know, you're a geek, you're this and whatever, because you're not necessarily doing what it, quote unquote, is seen as the sexy things to do. And I think for a lot of men, sometimes they struggle with, you know, their passion based on what's popular. And being popular was never, I wanted to be popular at one time, but then I realized after talking to some older men, and thank God for these older men, that you're on the right path. You don't necessarily have to be, as they like to call it, you don't have to be follow fashion monkey. You can just do your thing and stay in a lane that is your lane. Stay, you know what I mean? And if people want to join you on that journey, allow them to join you on that journey. But again, you have to drive your own bus. You have to make your way. You have, if there's no trail in front of you, then blaze the trail in front of you. And only your children and people who want to follow you will follow you, but you need to lead. Don't follow nobody.
Thank you. Next, who else wants to take this one? And I think talk more along the lines of like the present day, like what is the difference do you feel? Like I know Juice talked a little bit about him doing ballet and present day, and we all work with youth, most of us, some more than others, and we have children of our own. What is Black masculinity to work today?
You know, I was given a conversation years ago. Actually, funny that Drew mentioned Dudley Laws. And I was in Jamaica sitting down with Dudley Laws on a trip. And he said to me once, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but he said, a lion is a lion is a lion. And I've lived and I interpreted that to be no matter where you put me, no matter what situation I am in, I am a lion. And so there's a lot, in regards to today, we have a lot of men who aren't keeping their word, have let their women down, have let the culture down. And when I think of masculinity, African masculinity, I think and I reflect on what it means that when my women look at me, can they say, you know what? Growing up, actually, I'm going to backtrack it. When I grew up and I got my first full-time job and I was walking through the neighborhood of Shoreham, all the mothers were saying how proud they were because they all raised me. And so, yeah, man, what do you, and they're all like, I felt like I was a part of all of them. And that feeling of Black masculinity, that feeling of everyone contributed to make me the man that I am. And then I have to also be mindful of who I am, how I conduct myself, the places that I go, how I speak to women, how I speak and deal with men, finances, whatever it is. To me, that is my definition of masculinity, as in all my engagements. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to be in my word is bond.
Thank you. Next.
For me, growing up, it was funny because growing up and up to now, my dad passed away when I was 3. He drowned. So just as the gentleman was speaking from the beginning, my mom made sure I was
You're lagging, brother.
domestically sound. I feel, am I lagging still?
Yeah, you're lagging, Dennis.
How am I now?
Okay, sounds good now. Go
The
ahead.
devil's a liar. Yeah. Had to tell the devil he's a liar.
Right.
It's really Roger's internet. But yeah, well, like she made sure I was domestically sound. But growing up, that wasn't cool at the time. But she was working by herself, raising 3 boys. When she came home tired, we can't say, okay, man, I'll make something. We had to make sure we knew how to cook for ourselves. So growing up to that, and also hearing when I was younger, oh, because you're Black, you got to work 10 times harder. It's not going to be that easy and this and that. So I always had this mindset with being Black and masculine is just being able to go beyond and being able to not break when you're under pressure, because we always had pressure. And that was always on the back of my mind. Probably even to this day, I'm not sure. I never really took time to really think about it about myself. Probably it's something good to think about on my own personal time, but Black masculinity was always just about being able to handle things, even when times are rough. And when times are good, being able to sustain it. So when times get rough again, you have something. And that was, I don't know if that's, a poisonous thought, but that was always my mentality. When I speak, if you ask me, what is Black masculinity? If I'm supposed to take it from how I was brought up and what I saw in my life at the time, growing up until now, is just being strong, being able to endure, being able to be resourceful and innovative. So when you don't have enough, you can still get the job done, because there was times when we didn't have enough. As for case in point, not to make it long, oxtail doesn't have a lot of meat on it. That was a slavery portion that they gave us. We never had steak. But I promise you, we cooked it that good, and go to the store and see how much it costs now. And there's barely any meat on it.
Yeah.
We never had a lot, but we
wanna,
made the most out of it. And I give God thanks for that.
Yes.
So I just want to quickly say that I think a lot of us, grew up with a lot of those same sentiments, and I want to be careful about them, because
I do
kind
too.
of circling
Yeah.
back to what Jonathan said earlier, and this really isn't just about Black masculinity, but as Black people, we have constantly been told that, like, look at what our ancestors survived, look at how we've persevered, look at how we can make something out of nothing. And a lot of us grew up, you get 3-4 people in a bedroom, and we made it through lean times. We didn't have a lot to eat, and then we get to adulthood and we have this idea that we can survive anything, right? Our people survived anything. And so when we feel like we're going through a tough patch and things are difficult, the mentality as well, we just got to keep it moving, right? We just got to be strong. We are strong people. We are overcomers. And as much as I take pride in those statements, I just want to circle back to what Jonathan said, because we have to be mindful that we aren't suppressing the difficulties we're going through. We're pushing the traumas aside and trying to keep it moving without having them addressed properly, so that we can be healthy and happy and whole.
And I thank you, Curtis. I just wanted to, because there's a few things happening in the chat, and they do kind of stem around that piece around silence, like the silencing, like the kind of the subliminal of like being vulnerable is weak. Men, you can't show too much emotion, like some of the toxic masculinity Jonathan had mentioned earlier, and some of you others have. So the question, just summing up what a few people have kind of asked, was how do you get people to open up? How do you get them support? How do you get them to start the conversation around their mental health? How do you get them to start the conversation around their emotions? And just thinking for the young ones, like the young men that were the sons or the young brothers that we have, how do we start that conversation to have them talk more about mental health, their emotions, and how valid it is? And when you are feeling alone or sad or isolated, how do you make the connection? How do you reach out to your friends? How do you connect with somebody?
I'm going to give that to Drew. If you can start that off, and then Jelani.
Sorry. So, even going back to your question around what is Black masculinity, and that is the question when it comes to the young men who I work with in the facilities. So these are young men who are incarcerated in the facilities, and I tell you, that's what they struggle with, and that's I think about things like the lack of rites of passage. I think about things like basically, and these are just based on my own experience in terms of numbers, but I would say it's probably over 80% of the young men who I've worked with over the past 20, 25 years come from, from fatherless homes, and when we talk about rites of passage or even learning about masculinity and what that is, these are things that are usually taught to them on the street now, trying to figure that out. So in terms of, talking to young men and encouraging them to engage in dialogue and that sort of thing, it really requires forming that relationship and forming the trust. Now, I'm lucky in a sense because, I'm based on my own personal experience being, incarcerated as a young man too. I can have those conversations and I could talk to them and say, man, I know what it is to lie myself and count the dots on the ceiling and just think like, why, I don't want to be here right now. And then, so finding those common grounds or finding those commonalities that you could form that relationship and getting into conversation and you also being vulnerable. It's more or less trauma-informed approaches when you're mirroring a behavior in terms of what you're trying to get. So it's being vulnerable yourself, but at the same time, not one-upping the young man. You know what I mean? So if the young man were to mention like, man, I'm feeling it right now. Two of my friends just got shot. One of them died, the other one survived. And the last thing I'm gonna do is, man, well, last month 4 of my friends got shot, and all of them dead. So it's how to maintain and manage that relationship. Oh, sorry.
I would just say, and I'll follow Drew's example and kind of deal with both questions at once. If you ask me what Black masculinity is, I tell you 2 things: what I thought it was and what I think it is now. So at one time, if you had asked me what is masculinity in general, not even just Black masculinity, but masculinity in general, I would have said it's the ability to control a space, control your environment, what's around you. You know what I mean? And another word that might be used is dominate. You know what I mean? At one time, that's what I would have said, maybe not would have said, but what I thought masculinity was. And what I've come to realize is that masculinity is not about controlling the space or dominating the space. It's about creating a space wherein everybody around you can feel safe to be themselves. And to me, that's what,
Wow.
as a man, if you ask me, like, what is your job as a Black man?
That's beautiful. That's right.
To create a space where, my woman feels safe to be herself. My kids feel safe to be themselves. And they know that they can be free and say what they want to, say and move how they want to move. You know what I mean? In a respectful way that is themselves. And I think, as men, if we're wondering what our role in the society is at this time, it's to create that for the people that, are close to us and the people that are around us, so that, if I'm on the train late at night and a nurse is going home and she's on the train late at night and there's some guy in the train and he's acting kind of weird, just being able to lean over to her and say, hey, mommy, you okay? Everything all right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that, man. Don't worry about it. To me, that's masculinity. Mm-hmm. Just letting her know that, you know what? There's a safety in this space because I got you. You know what I mean? And if you ask me about how to get people to open up, I would just mirror what Drew said. You can't ask people for vulnerability until you model it yourself, you show it yourself. A lot of animals, animals know a lot of things that we sometimes forget. And a lot of animals, when they want to put another animal at peace, they'll show them their neck or they'll show them their belly. You know what I mean? And sometimes we come at it from a very like Eurocentric kind of masculine perspective, and we look at that as submission, but it's a lot of times it's not even submission so much as it is putting the other person or the other creature at ease and showing them, say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you the space to be vulnerable by just showing you a little bit of vulnerability. And I don't think that means, telling people all your business or, just throwing all protocol out the window. Because one thing I wanted to say is that I also believe that a lot of the stuff we were taught in terms of, I can get through this, I can survive this, what don't poison does fatten, all of those sayings, we shouldn't totally throw them out, because there is power and there is strength in that. But it's also knowing that along with that, we're still human beings, you know what I mean? And part of what don't poison does fatten is, your tears aren't going to poison you either. You know what I mean? They will actually make you stronger as well.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
The one thing that I wish that we would stop doing is normalizing trauma. We've all, through history, had a form of trauma that we've had to deal with. And it seems as though this generation and the generations to come have to break those cycles. And as JY said, we have to be vulnerable, and we have to, I guess, say our truths, say our stories, and, tell people about our experiences and invite people into those safe spaces where they feel okay. But the trauma that we've dealt with, we have to say what it is. And we also have to, and I'll speak for I had to come to grips with some of the trauma that I've faced in my life and be able to say it and be able to be okay with saying it. And that was very hard to do. I had to release those negative beliefs, those negative emotions, and finally get rid of them, because it was something that was weighing me down. And we have to learn how to trust more. But the trauma aspect, we have to stop normalizing trauma. That's the one thing that I see that holds us back as a culture, is normalizing the trauma that we've dealt with throughout our lifetime, whether it be emotional trauma, abuse, lack of fathers, lack of mothers, lack of guidance, lack of education. All those things are traumas. And yes, it's great to say, hey, I was able to do this. I was able to do this. I was able to conquer this. And I never got no help from anybody. But why? Let me tell you the truth. I don't ever want my son to ever go a day, or my daughters to go a day without hearing, Daddy loves you. Because I know in my life, I asked my dad if he loved me when I was 8, and he told me when I was 28. And he's never said it since. And I don't go a day without telling my kids I love them, kissing them, making sure that they realize that. Because if they don't hear it from me, I don't want them to hear it from the wrong person. You understand? I don't want them to mistake what love is from somebody else. They're going to learn from Daddy what love is, what a Black man is supposed to, and how to act with their children. The first man that my daughters dated was their father, because their father needs to know the type, to show them what to expect from a man. Now that my kids are at the age where they start dating, they start bringing the guys that they're interested in home, or showing me, Daddy, this is the person who I'm talking to. And there's no fear in doing that, because they feel that they can be vulnerable with their father.
That's a beautiful place to be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just noticed, I saw that live, she had her hand up, so I'm not sure if she would like to jump in and say something.
Yeah, hi. I was going to ask a
Hi.
question, but I think Jonathan just answered that question
Okay.
actually. Because my question, let me just say it, and you'll see that he has answered it. My question was, I was about to send it to the chat also. Many young Black women question where the good Black men are. And as a Black man, how do you address the Black woman and her Black child that you are a positive and impactful male role model in the world, despite the notion that a group of Black men are letting Black women down? So that's a loaded question, but I think based on what Jonathan just said, to me, it addressed showing how, to me, quote unquote, a typical role model should be in terms of a Black man. Because it's the notion that Black men are always letting down Black women. Sometimes, most times. And I guess I'm speaking from experience, so.
Well,
Thank you.
I'll tell you. I'll be straight with you. I will say this. I've let down Black women. I'm not even gonna lie and say that I did, because I've let down Black women. I'm sorry, I've done it, and I had to come to grips with that, and I had to be man about it and say, you know what, hey, I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be perfect, and I pray that I, in the future, don't let Black women down. But to be able to say that, I'm not necessarily running from responsibilities either, in the sense that I have children. And just because my relationships didn't work out with the moms and stuff like that doesn't mean that, I'm gone. I'm always going to be there for my children. But I think there's this misconception as to what a good Black man is. I think that there's good Black men out there, but he's just not the good Black man for you. Just like you may look at yourself as a good Black woman, but you're not a good Black woman for me. And there's a plethora of good Black women out there. There's a plethora of good Black men out there. Just that, I'm sorry, we're horrible choosers. I'm sorry, we are.
Yeah.
We are horrible choosers. And we live in a world right now of instant gratification. I mean, I learned the other day that as a guy, you can slide in a woman's DMs, make a D appointment, and you haven't even bought this woman a Timbit, and you can have sex with them. But that same Black woman's gonna go around and say she's a good Black woman. But the man didn't even buy you a Timbit. The man didn't take you out. He didn't take you on a date. You don't even know where he lives. He's never even been to your house. But but you're a good Black woman. And as a man, you're okay with doing that. Are you a good Black man? You may say, yeah, I'm a good Black man. I can do whatever. But this is where we are right now. And is there anything wrong with that? Some maybe people will say yes, but if that's how you get down, that's how you get down. The thing is, we have to, one, set parameters. Two, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And three, and most importantly, we have to have a plan. A plan for dating, a plan for our life, a plan for our children, and the most importantly, the generational wealth that we're going to leave them with.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's how you rewrite those narratives. That's exactly how you rewrite those narratives.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to take a quick spin to a little bit of a different topic, and also leave time because there's questions that have come up. And a lot of these things are interchangeable and connected. And this topic, when we talk about role models and how do we teach the young people, so I want to shift a little bit into fatherhood and talking about that, because that's definitely the first place to start, is with your own sons, our own sons, our children. And there seems to be a perception, a stereotype that Black men do not stick around for their children, or are not really involved And what are your thoughts and how damaging is that stereotype? I'm gonna throw it to Andrew just because I see you ready.
It's very damaging, very, very damaging. And the thing is that, to shoot Chantel, you know how long we've been kind of doing this work for. And when I'm working with young men and I ask them, okay, can I call your parents or what have you? It's always the mother, the mother, the mother. And I'm not saying that fathers are not around, and I'm not saying that there aren't other dynamics that play into that. But it is something with the young people who I work with. Now, these are young men struggling in conflict with the law, all sorts of different things, So it's hard because sometimes that's my world. And it's easy for me to forget that the majority of young people seem to have their stuff together. But it's just because I live in this world and that's what I deal with all the time. And it's damaging, and it's it's one of those things. And tell you the truth, that's how I've been somewhat successful in this field, because I formed those relationships where they often lean on me for fatherly advice or to maintain those relationships. But that, in my opinion, is what needs to be repaired, and that's how we will then put a dent on some of the things that these young men face in terms of challenges.
Yeah.
I think it's an unfair stereotype. I think that's a situation that's going across the board with any nationality, not just Black people, but I guess we're just the one that they have the magnifying
The
glass
label.
on.
The microscope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have the microphone. But fatherhood is very necessary. It's very important. I know a lot of good Black men. I'm just a pastor, and I try to diffuse some situation. I realize there's a lot of good men out there that want to still be involved in their children's life, and sometimes it's the wife that's not making it happen. They're making it difficult as well, just bitter because sometimes situation doesn't work, and it's a lot of dynamics that come into play. But I'll openly say that I'm a father of 4 boys, and I'm deeply involved in their life. Deeply involved in their life. And I know I'm not just one in a million. I know I'm not one in a million. Now, everybody can have their story, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of things that are in play why a lot of men are not as involved. And sometimes it gets blown up. Sometimes the man's doing all he can just working, and that's just that was just the agreement between him and his wife. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm always going to be here. I'm just going to do this 9 to 5. At one point, that was me and my wife. We had a babysitter, and we were just jaded by ill treatment to our child. So then she was a medical lab assistant. She stopped working, stayed with the kids, and she said, it's going to be hard on you, Dennis, because you got to work. I said, I'll do it. I'll do it. So there was times where I could not go to the school. I could not be the one to do something. I could not be the one there. But when I could, I made the opportunity to do it because I enjoy doing those things. It's sad. It hurts me to know that the label is just stuck on Black men. And really, there's a lot of great Black fathers out there. A lot of them. We see Kobe with his daughter. We see all these people. I promise you, they don't look like they're doing it because the camera's on them. And I just heard from Jonathan as well. Prime example, for me personally, great father sounds like it. I can believe definitely he is. But we cannot allow these labels to not allow us to see the truth.
Yeah, definitely.
We can't allow these labels to say, okay, then that's what it is. Because that's not what it is.
Thank you. I definitely agree. I see Phil, you want to say something?
Yeah, the hardest part about this conversation is, let's put the child aside for a second. Both the mother and father are dealing with such torment and pain that getting them to both identify that, whether people want to have that stigma on her as she's the jaded mother and he's the deadbeat dad, those are all terms that have been going on for generations and generations. And until we have that mediator person, I'm not talking about Fro, I'm not talking about the institutions that make things worse. I'm talking about a body, whether it's through a pastor, whether it's through someone like Drew, who's working with an institution that can support Carrie and her services at S.E.R.F, those are our plugs. We need to find a mediator that looks to build not a mediator that looks to pull away, because that's what's happened.
Exactly.
And there's a million excuses calling this, oh, if he was still having sex with her, he would still find effort to be with the kids. But both are feeling pain. And now we get this, his pain is worse, no, her pain is worse. And that's where the pull comes from. Never get resolved.
Yeah.
You know, and another piece to add to this too is just to talk about, you know, the importance of family foundation, you know, and family unit and that sort of thing. You know, it's and you know, something it's tough sometimes raising
in today's society,
boys
because we're all
Yeah.
still raising kids.
Yeah, it's not easy. I have a 22-year-old son, and I've been doing this work for his entire life, let's say, but I've had my own challenges raising my son. I can't be his counselor. I could only be his father. You know, I remember some years ago, my son was going through his ups and downs, and I'm trying to think of anything that I could do to help him get through this. Man, I remember reaching out to Jelani, and I was like, hey, Jelani, do you mind if my son follows you on Instagram or Facebook? Because I just want him to be exposed to some good men out there, you know, that have a good, just, it could even be just scrolling through Instagram and seeing Jelani like throw up his book. He's an author and different things like that. And then Jelani was like, yeah, sure. You know what I mean? So, I mean, sometimes I have the answers for young men who I'm working with, but sometimes I don't have the answers for my own son. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's important to identify that. And like I said, like when it comes to my own kid, I can only be his father. You know, I can't be his counselor. And at times, if he, you know, God forbid, if he ever needed some counseling or what have you, I wouldn't try to provide that to him because like I can't be his counselor. That would be for someone else to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I would say like when it comes to fatherhood and stereotypes, I think you can put too much energy into the stereotype and 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 really lose some. And I think where the real effort needs to be is just in terms of overall accountability. I know a lot of good fathers. You know, I try to be a good father. You know what I mean? My youths have always been with me, always been around me. But I also think that as a community, we just have to try to be accountable as a community to each other.
Yeah.
More than worrying about how other communities might label us. You know what I mean? Does the stereotype hurt? Perhaps. I think what hurts more is that we aren't lifting up the examples and making that to be what young men strive for. So right now we have a culture generally, you know what I mean, that glorifies having the most kids and having a lot of material things and having a kind of glossy type of success. Not a success inside your house, but a success outside your house. And that's where we put the value as a community culturally. We put a lot of value on. I always tell the young men I talk to, it's like there's two types of wealth. There's the wealth you see on the road and the wealth that's in your yard. And I value more the wealth in my yard than the wealth that's on the road for everybody else to see. And I think culturally, when we popularize that type of imagery and that type of mentality, this wouldn't even really be an issue for us. I think worrying about how other communities see us and how they label us or, you know, what people say is you know what I mean, is really a waste of time because they don't like us already. So they never gonna, you know what I mean? They're never gonna say nice things about us. And if we measure ourselves with other people's ruler, we'll come up short every time without fail. So I think what we should worry about more than the stereotype is the actuality. And the actuality is that there are good fathers in the community, and there is also a big breakdown with a lot of fathers in the community. And that as a community, our real movement right now has to be about us being accountable as a community to these young people that are out there. Because the other thing is that we could all on this call, in this panel, be great fathers. But we're still gonna send our kids out there and they're gonna be around all the other kids. So us being great fathers doesn't cover us or protect our kids. Who are our kids gonna date? Who are gonna be their friends? Who are they gonna build with? So I think right now the real effort for us has to be being accountable as a community to all these kids out there without good fathers or mothers, and saying like, what can we do to bring them in and show them the love that might be in some homes and not in others. And then secondly, culturally, we have to glorify the people that are doing it right and make that something that young men and young women see and strive toward.
Absolutely.
Add on that?
Yes.
Okay. When it comes to Black fathers, for example, I used to worry about the isms, schisms that I would hear. And I don't even watch that anymore, because a lot of times we do a lot of collateral damage back and forth. And what needs to be paramount is what is in the best interest of the child at the end of the day. And not necessarily your child, but children in general. In the sense that growing up, I had the men at church, I had my uncles, I had the mandem on the street corner, the good influences and the bad influences. I had the man up on the hill when I would go visit Jamaica, all being that collective role models, both good, bad, and indifferent, in shaping me as a man. I disagree when people say that they're not, that, Black men run from responsibilities and whatever the case may be. I think that that's a stereotype that's out there and it's being perpetuated. But there's fathers for fathers. There's Black Daddies organization. There's the Black Men's Project. There's all these organizations that are always fostering fathers. Always, Black men are with their fathers. I mean, with their children. I mean, I'm not going to bring up his name unless he wants to say it. But I remember working with an individual, and we used to have meetings, and it felt like the program director was purposely making the meetings at a time where it made it hard for the man to go get his daughter, come back to the meeting, make her sit down while we're having an announcer meeting, and with the crayons and all the other sort of stuff. And I mean, these are things he has, and then have to go do his show. You know what I mean? These are things that would happen, right? Wow. And all these things we have to deal with as Black men. If you ask Sean at Knowledge Bookstore in Brampton, who comes and buys the most books for their children? It's Black men, not women.
Why do you think that is?
Because we're the first ones to tell our children to go pick up a book and read. Come on. I mean, that's just what we do. I mean, we've heard that our whole lifetime. You know what I mean?
And the church said amen.
You know what I mean? We're the first ones to book. I don't know why anybody's going to say whatever. You know what I mean? Put down the video game, pick up a book and read.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We go out there. Listen, we go out there and we buy comic books. So guess what? If we have comic books, guess what our children are going to read? And all these different things. And I said, I don't buy into, one of the things that I do as a Black male is I control my own narrative. And I tell every single Black man to control their own narrative. I don't care what you think. I don't care if you think I'm a good father or not. All I care about is my children love me. That's it. I all care about my godchildren loving me. All I care about is just my family in general and the people on the road, right? Nova and I, Curtis and I always talk about being empaths. You know what I mean? Helping broken birds. We don't care if they fly away, but we're not gonna pass a bird on the road and not help them. And that's just the way we look at it with children. You know what I mean? And I think all the men on this panel are talking the same language when it comes to, we are men in the community, and if we see a broken bird, we're going to fix it, we're going to repair it. And if more men and more women were like that and not try to separate, but just say to herself, you know what? In spite of this man, I don't like him. In spite of her, I like her. I am going to do what's in the best interest of the children, and done. And if we all had that mentality, what's in the best interest of the because trust me, I've been a family court, and I know that there's one or two guys who look like me in family court, and a whole bunch of everybody else of the less melanated species in court. So obviously that tells me something, that we're not the big number out there who are not doing what we're supposed to do.
The big thing that we're missing is the
so
village.
I don't care what anybody wants to say, right? I know that we as Black people within the community, we have helped people that we don't even know. We've welcomed people into our house. We've done different things. We're like, you know what I mean? How many times does it happen where you know what I mean? You hear of a lady, whatever the case may be, and a man is marrying her to give her papers and all this stuff, and she has a couple of kids. Back in the day, a man would write to a woman and say, hey, I'm up here doing my thing. Hey, you want to come? Sure. All of a sudden, that's his wife, and brings her up here, and they start a family and all the different things. So I'm tired of hearing about these stereotypes, because we're not the ones who made that narrative.
No.
We're not the ones who took the trades out of schools. And made it so that, hey, guess what? You now need a university diploma to basically wash pot. You need all these different things, whatever. We used to have trades. We used to play instruments. We used to do whatever. And then it became not a sexy thing to do. And why? And because of those sexy things, so now we have to go to the man now and go get a job. When we could have learned a trade in school and been a plumber. We could have done something, whatever, where we had the money in our pocket, where we recycle dollars within our community. But I know this now, as a father, for me to do certain things with my children, which I think is hilarious. If I want to go into school now and basically just go on a bus trip with my child, I need to go and take out a police record form. So if I have a police record, that means I cannot see my child unless I have a partner. So you've just eliminated a lot of guys who used to do some stuff back in the day. Right? If I want to help out my Black community of people in prison, I have to have a clean police record. But they don't tell you when you go for your police check, right, to get 5 and 6 copies. Because if you have one child who goes to school in Peel, you need one police check. If they're in Halton, you need another police check. If they're in New York, you need another police check. If you do Sunday school like I did as well too, that's another police check. So that's 4 police checks I have to have just to basically help out my community. Please tell me what's wrong with that.
And then Jonathan, and on top of that, we know that a lot of guys picked up charges that shouldn't have been charged. So that's a whole next topic.
Which is and that leads into the next topic, right?
That leads.
It's moved definitely from just fatherhood into just the systematic oppression, like the oppression and the system, this white supremacist system that we're working with, and how it definitely impacts the Black community way differently than white people. So I just wanted to, I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and I do agree with all the men sitting here. Just have to say it because I do find that there are so many men that are amazing fathers. I do agree that it's a damaging stereotype. And I think that sometimes people are too much in their feelings of wanting to, the fight is more about the partner than it is about their child. But I definitely think we as a people, we need to stop the narrative. We don't need to accept the narrative. We need to stop it and continue to do what you and these men are doing. And the rest of the young fathers, I know a lot of good Black fathers out there, tons of them. But I do want to move into, and I know I'm mindful of time, we're going a little bit over, but the conversation's good, so we're just going to keep going on. The question around Black Lives Matter and being Black in Canada, and just some of the stuff that you just touched on in regards to how the system is definitely set up differently, and we could go on with many ways. As fathers, as Black men, as people that take care of the community, what is the message that you are sending to the young ones, the little ones, and to the younger ones growing up about being Black in Canada? Because it's not so just in America that racism is happening and all this shit. It happens here, and people act like it doesn't. And maybe it may show itself a little differently with a lot more microaggressions and a lot more hidden racism, but it's definitely here. So, what are the messages that you guys send to?
I'm gonna let Curtis take this one. Start off with this one.
Well, I mean, I don't want to, rehash we've got this, we all know that we sit our kids down and we say, hey, when those lights start flashing behind you, keep your hands on the dash. We know that we train our kids from an early age to understand that our interactions with systems don't mimic those of other people from other cultures. And when I say systems, I'm not just referring to the police, but I'm talking about making sure that we talk to our children about the way that we're disadvantaged in the education system, about the fact that there are countless. I'm sure these brothers on the panel have had an experience where a guidance counselor sat them down and said, "You ever thought about being a mechanic? You ever thought about yeah, we all been streamed in a direction that wasn't necessarily towards our strengths and our gifts. So I think really for me, I've got 3 kids, and I have been adamant about um, having them question the way that all of the systems we interact with treat us, whether it's the way as Black people we're treated in the healthcare system, whether we're talking about the education system, whether we're talking about the judicial system. A lot of us were raised and told really early, we got to work twice as hard to get half as much.
Yeah.
And those types of things, they go a long way in how you navigate and understand the world. So I'm just really adamant about trying to make sure my children are as aware of as possible of the ways that we are disadvantaged, continuously disadvantaged. Even in terms of how the pandemic impacts us. There's been a lot of talk about how the pandemic has impacted the Black community with respect to the healthcare that we received in the healthcare system. But even above and beyond that, we have to think about things like the fact that as Black people, we're very community oriented, right? My generation, we grew up, on the weekend, you're over at some uncle's house, there's a party there, you're connecting with your family on the weekends. We have the community that we connect with through church. We're a very social people. So this pandemic impacts us significantly because we rely on those social connections to keep our souls alive. We're not isolated and we don't socialize in the way that some other communities socialize. So it's important that we're aware of ourselves and how we're moving around in the community and how we're being impacted by all these external forces.
Anybody else want to take this? I know I want to give some time for the audience to jump in, and I see the chat lighting up and going. So if there's anybody that from the audience that want to jump in, feel free to do so now. Because I know I'm seeing time, but I want a takeaway before we wrap it up. But I want to give you guys a chance to speak.
Just to add something real quick, bias is alive and well. Curtis just he spoke that beautifully. Like bias is alive and well, and that's something that we always have to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Sorry, Pastor. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir. No. It's only because I didn't see your screen. That's why. Go ahead.
Give thanks. For me, I'm very matter of fact with my kids and with kids in general about racism. So I don't belabor it, but I acknowledge it. And I'm like, yo, yeah, it's there. You know what I mean? Kind of like gravity is there. And you know what I mean? Kind of like the laws of physics are there. So now that we've acknowledged that it's there, how are we going to deal with it? How are we going to move? So one thing, like, especially with my kids, I always show them in school, you're not going to be treated fairly all the time in school. So there's two ways we're going to deal with this. One, my favorite, I'm not really a big church person, sorry, Pastor, but my favorite text
It's okay. It's
is
okay.
a text where it says you have to be as innocent as cunning as a serpent, but as innocent as a dove. That's how I talk to my youths and the youths I deal with about dealing with the system. You got to be as cunning as a serpent, and you have to be as innocent as a dove. So one, you have to see that they're gonna come at you all kind of sideways and backways and crooked, and you got to be smart about dealing with it. And then you got to be in the right. Those are the two things. Be smart and be in the right. And if they come at you wrong when you're being smart and you're being in the right, bring it to me. Bring it to your mom, because we will go to war to all lengths. But what I need for you, the youths, to do is to be smart about what you're doing and be innocent.
No, and that was well said. And I say that because I say the same thing to my kids. The Bible said, out of the mouth of two, every word is established. I used to question if I was saying something wrong, but I say, okay, I was saying something right. Like, if it's there, it's there, and I'm like that father too. Regardless, I don't hide like anything out there. My kids are gonna learn it from me first. They're gonna learn it from me first, and I let them know that it's there. And if it's there, let me handle it. Bring it to me. I tell my kids, I don't want you to be one of those kids that we see you at 40 years old and we found out somebody did something to you at your age of 40. Tell me now. Tell me now. Tell me now. And in regards to what's going on now with injustice and everything, I still say now. I don't think it's a past issue.
Yeah.
It's still going on. It's not only with the police. It's in the workplace. It's in the school. It's everywhere. I always tell my boys that to look out for it. And when you see it, don't render evil for evil. Don't render evil for evil. But if it's there, you see it, let me handle it. Let me handle it. Because sometimes if at their age, if they handle it their own way, it could get messy.
Yeah.
It could get very messy. And a lot of things can happen before you get the phone call from work that this happened. And by the time you get to the school, a lot of things have already been established before you got there. And if you don't know the system, if you don't know your rights, it could get pretty bad. Ignorance won't save you.
Yeah.
West Indian patois, it won't save you. It won't save you. So I always tell my kids that it's there. And if it goes on like that, call me.
Yeah.
I paint cars for a living. I tell them I'll drop the paint gun and I will go to that school. Please don't judge me, but I tell my kids I'm not going to the school as Pastor Dennis. I'm a father first.
Yeah.
I'm a father first. So in this time, I just tell my kids, you have a voice. If you see injustice, speak about it. Talk to us about it if you feel like you've been dealt with unfair. But the only thing I always encourage them, don't deal with it yourself.
Yeah.
Talk to me first and let me deal with it. Let me cover you as your father. And when you grow old, your time will be different, but try to do it the same way for your children. Cover your children. I tell my boys, cover them because it's there.
Yes. Chantel, in the
Miss-
comments, is there anything that want to be told or said?
There is someone who has a question, Miss
Okay.
Frederick. She has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to also add to what Curtis and Jelani were saying about, like, I also have two young kids, 8 and 6, Maya and Jaden, and I also just try to teach them that I don't go into too much detail because yes, they're young, but I just let them know that we do have a disadvantage and that the way we have to navigate in life. And I just try to educate them that I have just two simple, like, I guess, rules or simple things that I just instill in them, that we have rules in life. And if you don't follow them, then you have consequences. So you either choose to do the right thing and follow the rules, or you will choose to do the wrong thing and then suffer the consequence. So I just educate them in that way and teach them that, you know, we have this disadvantage already, and like we do have a different skin color. Like we live in Richmond Hill, so predominantly different, like Persian, Asian, like Chinese, everything but like Black is not predominant here. So I just teach them to navigate, you know, kill them with kindness, smile, you know, be fun, be, you know, anything opposite from attitude, anything opposite from that. You don't want to show that. You don't want, you know, to show the stereotype of what they already think we are. You don't want to give into that. So I just educate them on choosing the right way. And if you don't do that, then you will have to suffer the consequence. And that's all I would like to say. And I loved this this Zoom meeting. It was amazing. And yeah, I can't wait for the next one.
I
Thank
just
you
want to
so
say
much.
really,
Yes.
really quickly. I heard the last speaker saying that, you know, she tries not to expose her kids to too much, and I think that's really important. I think we really need to choose, you know, what's safe and what's comfortable. We want our kids to be kids, right? I say to people all the time, you know, you go to Walmart and I see these white kids running around doing car flips and stuff like that in the aisles, and as Black parents, we tend to really try to hold our kids close, right? We try to make sure that we don't have somebody looking at our kids saying, "Oh, look at this monkey running through the aisles." I don't want anybody looking at my kids saying anything disrespectful. At the same time, I recognize that these white people can have their kids doing cartwheels in the Walmart because they teach their kids from an early age the world is theirs, right? Like they can do whatever they want anytime. They don't have that kind of pressure. And it's really hard to toe the line between allowing your children to be children and educating them appropriately. I do want to say, and you know, I encourage everybody, you know, to find whatever that space and pace is for your own children and what you think is appropriate for them. But I can tell you right now, I got a picture of my 5-year-old daughter standing in the spot that MLK took his last breaths in at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. My kids have stood in the spot that Malcolm X was gunned down in the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan. You know, my kids I've been very deliberate about trying to educate my children about our people and our life experiences. And I think it's really important. I think it goes a long way in teaching them. I think we sort of struggle with whether or not we're exposing them to too much, but at the same time, by teaching them and giving them a sense of integrity and giving them a sense of themselves, I think it goes a really long way in terms of their self-confidence and how they end up navigating the world.
You know, Curtis, you struck it beautifully. I was in my second last year of high school, and I played for a basketball team at Runnymede. And at the time, it was called the Runnymede Redmen.
I went to Runnymede, brother. I think I might be a year or two older than you, but go ahead.
One of the indigenous chiefs came down, and the council came down, and they said, "You are no longer going to call your school the Redmen." Demanded, and we signed a treaty at the school, and the school's name changed to Raven. Now, that was on a small scale, but that message that stuck with me from high school was they demanded how they're going to be spoken to, how they're going to be called, and an entire shift and change had to take place. And it's one of the things that I'm going through in my transformation where I'm saying, okay, how do we identify ourselves and how do we speak to each other? And so the system and the world looks upon us, while other cultures are called Italians, Jews, you know, Chinese, you name it, we're still going by just this term Black in general. Who are we? Where's the African in us? And so, you know, it's a whole other spiel. I'm not going to go there. But what I really want to focus on is how do we treat and conduct ourselves to each other? And it really starts there. They're going to have their issues. They never may not like them. But I'm not asking for someone to directly like me. We have to respect each other and collectively demand respect on every institution.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just throw on that is that, you know, when you advocate for your children, make sure you take them with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Advocate
Yeah.
for themselves.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because you know, we advocate for them because we understand how to do it. Those of us who are fortunate enough to have learned how to navigate these things. And we should definitely make sure that our children see how it's done, because there's gonna come a time where they have to advocate for themselves all the while. So teaching them how to advocate for themselves is really important, and making sure. And one thing I always tell my kids all the time, listen, man, these people ain't smarter than you. Don't make them fool you into thinking they are.
Yeah,
They're not smarter than you.
exactly. We're
And
just
a
as
lot of
smart as
times,
them. Exactly. And we just need to
Yep.
get educated. And that's what I'm saying. It starts with the education. We
but
have
we
the
are as
same
smart as them.
tools. We have the same tools as every other person out there. Just like I heard somebody else say it. Oh, we heard it throughout our childhood. Oh, go grab a book. Yes, because it's facts. Go grab a book. Why? I say it to my kids all the time. You have time to do idle things and make up this and do experiments with bubbles and add food coloring. How about you go do the same energy and go read the book and figure out how to do real like real things, you know what I mean? And get educated and get the knowledge that Timmy 2 over there is reading about and is going to go to school for. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same stuff. We have the same tools. So why aren't we using them? We just need to educate our kids and let them know that they have the same tools available for them out there that everybody else does. We just need to find them and be smart about it and educated and know how to use them to our advantage. It's simple. It's simple stuff. We
Yeah.
all have Instagram, we all have Facebook, we all have whatever, but we choose to post the negative stuff. We choose to look at Timmy 2 over there and Stacy and her Botox and her this and that. Like, let's post the positive stuff. Let's post the, you know, the stuff that's gonna help people, you know, find their way.
And I think too, I think we all touched upon it, unless I missed it, but I think I have 4 boys as well, and I'm raising them on my own. And I think for me, what I strengthen in them is loving themselves and and being unapologetic for it. So not having to answer questions about themselves, or not having to justify themselves, not having to justify why, they love themselves, or why they want to be around other people that look like them, or why they have just those things, instilling loving themselves, loving their culture, and knowing their culture and knowing their history. And so we don't continue to repeat it is another thing that I think we need to do more of. And as Black men too, I want all of these men that I've chosen on this panel, they are great fathers, they're great men. And I just want us to continue to be the village and help raise other people's children, because there is not always a Juice out there, or Curtis around there, or Pastor Dennis around our Black boys and our Black girls. And we just have to be the village. So before I wrap it up, because we have gone over, and I see that, I know this is a needed conversation, and I know that it's definitely important to have, and this is why I wanted to have it, and this is why I chose this panel. And I thank you for who said looking forward to the next one. There will be. So thank you for putting it out there, because I've received it, and I will make it happen. But I just want to give the panel one time, just a little bit, to just wrap it up, to give some takeaways from what you've learned from those 3 things, which is fatherhood, Black masculinity, and Chantal, I'm missing the last one. Fatherhood, Black masculinity,
relationships.
And relationships. It's far from your mind.
So if you can just give us takeaway from those 3 topics that we touched upon today, and then we'll close it up, and we'll thank everybody for coming.
I'm just going to really quick jump in and just say that you said something that was really important there, that you're teaching your children to love themselves. And I just want to encourage everybody on the call to really to love yourself, to really kind of think about how you're positioned. I think so many of us grew up, our generation grew up under a blame culture. Our parents blamed us for everything. Quick example, you can go ahead and raise your hand if this sounds familiar to you, but if I'm 10 years old and I'm sitting in the living room and I'm watching TV and I got a glass of water on the floor, and my mother walks through and kicks over the glass of water, I get beat because I got a glass of water sitting on the floor. And if my mother is sitting in the living room and she's watching TV and she got a glass of water on the floor, and I walk through the living room and I kick over the glass of water, I get beat because I didn't watch where I was going. Okay, sound like how this is how I was raised. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm Scotian, but I know this was the culture, right? we were taught that we were always at fault, and a lot of us carried that into our adulthood, right? And so we believe that we are at fault. We've internalized it, and we're in a place in life now where we're like, when something goes wrong, first thing we look at is, what did I do? What did I not do? How did I not navigate that correctly? So I just want to encourage all of you to challenge that way of thinking and love yourselves. It's an important thing to do before we even try to teach our children that we need to pattern it for ourselves. And I think turning it back to the conversation we were having earlier, I heard it echoed earlier. I think, again, we need to do it first, right? We need to sort of set the trend for the young people that we have coming up after us, and we have to do that by patterning that behavior and embracing it. We have to go ahead and drop the facade. We got to go ahead and be vulnerable with each other. You know, I'm looking at Jonathan right now. Like, I know Jonathan and I, like, man, this dude is family for me, and I can say I love you to Jonathan with the same comfort that I have saying it to my son or my daughter. And we do not get off the phone without saying, I love you, man. And I think that it took me a while to get to a place where I could comfortably speak that way. And in fairness, some of that comes from the security that Jonathan has fostered in our relationship. The fact that I can be vulnerable with him without facing judgment. One of the things that I'm taking away from this call today, I'm just going to wrap up so I'm not too long, was I loved Jelani's analogy where he spoke about the animals and about the fact that sometimes you have to just show your belly, show your neck, right?
Yes.
And allow for somebody else to be comfortable enough to speak to you, and you have to strip away a part of yourself. It's not just being vulnerable, but it's also ensuring that you're not going to be judgmental, ensuring that you're going to receive from somebody else, and make sure that you're keeping it safe, that it's okay for them, right? We've got a certain comfortability amongst ourselves here in this conversation, and it allows us to be able to speak freely, right? When we're in quote unquote mixed company, we might not speak the same way. We need to make sure that when we speak to each other, we're closing that gap, and we're making sure it feels like it's just us, it's just family. We're safe here, we can talk here. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Who's next?
I'll go. I guess I'll go. And Carrie and Chantel and everyone on this panel, I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be a part of this. It's been wonderful. And like I said in the beginning, I honestly feel like I'm amongst family. So real quick, so it was masculinity, relationships, and fatherhood. So masculinity, last, I guess, closing comment when it comes to masculinity is that real men do cry. It's okay to cry. Shoot, at the end of the Notebook, when the two people died at the end, I cried like a little baby. You know what I mean? So real men do cry. Fatherhood, when it comes to fatherhood, I would honestly say it's important for men to find the courage and the comfort in having real conversations with their children, open conversations with their children, to find that comfort zone, to have that and know that it's okay to have those conversations. And for relationships, I would say never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. It's work, it's a journey, and just embrace the journey. So again, thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of this. And to anyone listening, if I could do anything to help you, your child, if God forbid you have a child that's in conflict with the law and you're looking for some guidance or some advice, shoot, on Instagram, Uncle Drew 1975 on there. Please hit me up. And again, it just what was echoed earlier is that we are all part of this village, so let's keep our village strong.
Thank you, Drew. Next.
If I can just jump in, Drew, sure. Drew, you said it, and I'm going to echo it. We are all each other's keepers. I'm just going to leave a word of peace, that if you focus on your inner peace first, you can be able to support other people in their peace, in their moments where there isn't peace. And, if something's happening, the mistake that I feel that as a culture we're making, something's happening across the city, and we just check with our own children, oh, we're good, and we're not. We act as if we're not impacted, but we are. We should be. we should be just as furious as that mother, as that father, as that family, because we're all one. It shouldn't just be, okay, did I check the Edwards? Everybody in the Edwards chat is okay. It goes deeper than that. So we are each other's keeper. We can't let that go. That's what makes us, if I see you on the road, my dad used to nod his head at every black man when we're growing up. I'm like, Dad, you know him? No, but I'm hearing him up anyways. We have to show that love. That's a missing element, that piece. And I know our queens are here, and our queens, I can't wait till the next chat, Carrie. I was at the last one with the ladies. Man, let's continue to support our women.
Mhm.
Next, Jonathan or Dennis.
Oh, sorry. I just want to make sure I don't cut anybody off because I don't see the screen. I didn't want to be rude, but in regards to fatherhood, I want to encourage any man, like, don't follow the stereotypes. Don't even pay attention to the labels, as Jonathan says. Like, he doesn't even worry about that, because if it's all about the kids, what really matters is what your children think of you. You can't control what anybody else says about you. And people are going to say what they want to say about you. But as long as I know that my children are my world and they know that, I don't really worry about the status quo. I don't worry about what the stereotypes are, the labels. It doesn't really faze me. Because at the end of the day, you have to make up your mind. Do you have a world to entertain or a family to maintain? So you can't really what the world says. Just focus on your family. And in regards to masculinity, I'll tell any black man or any man that you are a human being. You are a person. You will go through every emotions. You will go through emotional situations. You will go through traumatic things. But the best thing that supports your masculinity is the person that stands beside you as your friend. It's like the movie 300, that you are strong as the shield that's beside you. You don't have to be an island by yourself. There's strength in the numbers, but good numbers. So build your social network. Make sure that you have the right people around you, because relationships are not really toxic. It's the appropriation of the relationship that makes it toxic. Sometimes we put people in bad positions in our life. But I hear and I heard from everybody tonight, and I realized that value was added on to me. I've learned a lot tonight from everybody here. Everybody here. And one of the things that made me more better as a person was some of the stuff that Jonathan said, Curtis has said, Andrew have said. I thank everybody for letting me be a part of this, but more importantly, allow me to be a listener in this thing, because a lot of bombs and gems were dropped, and I hope and pray a lot of us apply them. God bless.
Thank you. Jelani or Juice?
I guess all I'll say is when it comes to relationships, I'll just say that when Black women say something about Black men, if it pricks me, if I feel a little twinge, then I check myself, because that usually means there's some truth in it that applies to me. If it doesn't, then 9 times out of 10, it's either that I know it's false or it's something that I know I'm straight on. So it's like if somebody said, Black men can't fight. Black men wouldn't get in an uproar because they'd be like, yeah, all right. You know what I mean? Try your best and see then. You know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of times as Black men, as far as relationships go, when Black women say things about us that are not flattering, if it hurts, then maybe we need to check ourselves, because there's probably a little bit of truth in it that applies to us, or maybe a lot of truth in it that applies to us. And if what they're saying doesn't apply to you personally, then I don't think it's something to get worked up about, because one of the things in making us a place safe for Black women is giving them the space to say stuff about us that we don't really like or don't want to hear. So that's what I'll say as far as relationships. And it doesn't mean we have to agree with them 100% of the time. It just means that we have to give them the space to say it and then take it in and see if it applies. Beyond that, when it comes to fatherhood, the one thing I'll say, I'll tell you what my dad told me. Tell your kids the stuff that you know, and they agree or they disagree. When it turns out you're right, don't say anything. And when it turns out you're wrong, apologize. And I find when I stick to that advice, it works well for me. And when I don't, then you don't know already. And yeah, with masculinity, I'll just go back to, you know, our job as men is to make a safe space for the people around us.
Thank you, Jelani. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, final thoughts, Juice. You're on mute.
A radio guy should know how to push the button, right? Okay. From the men, I learned a lot tonight. I learned a lot. I had to take an introspective look on myself first. And I'll speak for mine in this part. What I want to do is I want to be a better father. When somebody tells me that I'm a great father, that's okay, but I know I can be better. I know I can do more. I don't want to just be able to do the minimum. I want to be able to do the maximum. And I don't even know what the maximum is. As far as masculinity, I think I'm masculine. I'll leave it at that. But there's a lot of things that I need to learn more about myself as an individual. As far as, what was the third one you said? The third one?
Relationships.
Relationships. Wow.
Black men relationships, friendships.
The relationships, just in general, like relationships with Black men. I think for all of us, we need to learn to love more. If we learn to love ourselves, if we learn to love others, if we learn to be tolerant of our differences, we would be able to deal with a lot more things. We don't need shadeism. We don't need colorism. We don't need tribalism. We don't need all those other isms. If we learned to just love at our core, if we just learned to love, if we learned to be acceptant of people's differences, we would go a lot further. If you look at other cultures, follow the money. Follow where their money goes to. Follow what's acceptable as far as education. There's a reason why we love to say to other communities, they do this, they do this, they do this, they do this well. If there's one thing that we could focus on for the next generation and do well as a collective, then we would be further ahead. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Chantel, do you want to?
I am just honored and I'm blessed to be amongst amazing kings that I really learned a lot. You've dropped so much knowledge and amazing gems, and I really appreciate being part of this and hearing. And I respect the honesty so much. I love how real everyone kept it 100. And what I see here is this is a village. And I know, Carrie, you said, you're raising your 4 by yourself, but there's a village here. You found this is part of your village. I think if there's more love, I think Jonathan couldn't have said it better himself, is that love is what is needed. We need to stop with the isms and really love each other, respect our differences. So I really, and I know, and Drew, you and I go way back, and I've definitely come to you many, many times for many things to help with my family and my extended family. So I appreciate you. I appreciate all the men here. And I really appreciate the people that are with us on Zoom, and I appreciate the people that joined in on Facebook. The conversation was amazing. There's lots happening in the chat that they all really resonated with them, and a lot of fire signs and 100% real talk facts. And so I think we're all, and I look forward, Carrie, to the next continue of this conversation, because it's definitely, this conversation is so big and it's needed. So I appreciate, I'm humbled by these kings, and I appreciate having this conversation and look forward to more.
Perfect. Perfectly said. Couldn't have said it better myself. And again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you to my panel of wonderful men. And you guys know you are my village. And you guys know that I will call upon you if I need you, if I don't need you. And I know you guys are always there to help and always able, willing and able. And I just leave with this to just, again, continue to be everybody's village that you can be. Support the people around you, support the people, like Phil said, if one of us is hurt, we are all hurt. So if one of us is in trouble, we're all in trouble, and we all need to be there for each other. So again, thank you all for coming, and I so appreciate it. And yes, there will be another one. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good
God
night.
Good night,
bless.
everybody. God bless, fellas, man.
Greetings.
God bless you,
Not
brothers.
everybody. Thanks a lot. Bless.
All right.
Stay safe.
Panelists, just stay back a little bit and let everybody else leave. I just want to touch base with you guys.
Hi, cousin Jay. Love you.
Love you. Mwah.
Thank you for coming,
Love you,
cousin.
Thank you.
Love you, Carla.
Jonathan,
Hey, Lisa.
how you doing? Can I just breathe a word of prayer for these men online as I'm led by the Holy Spirit?
Definitely.
Hallelujah, Jesus. Ekorobo shanda. Makoroba shekendalaba shanda. Lord God, we just want to give you thanks this evening, dear Lord. God, we thank you, Holy Spirit, for these men. My God, Lord God, we ask that every household that has been represented here in the name of Jesus, that Lord, you will cover them. Lord, you will use them as a point of contact to touch other men. Because, Father God, we see in this world, we need men like these, dear Lord. We thank you for the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, the experiences that they have endured and gone through, mighty God, that they can share openly, Lord God, to touch other men. Father God, let this movement, Father God, ricochet that it will touch nation, mighty God. Lord, we thank you, Father God, that you, Abba Father, would have created this medium, mighty God, to touch life in such a supernatural way. And so, Father God, I thank you that, Lord, you will continue to rise up these men to stand up as Black men, and Lord, even touching the other races, mighty God, and teach them, mighty God, how to be a good man, a good father, a good husband, mighty God, and even a friend. And so, Lord, I just thank you for what you're doing in this season in their lives. Lord, may they lack nothing at all. May you continue, Lord God, to open doors of opportunity, Father God, to be your mouthpiece, Abba. And so, Lord, let your will be done for their lives. Let purpose be birthed out. Let purpose be fulfilled. And Lord, even for the women that joined in, because Father God, as you have shown us, that Lord, it takes two. And so, God, may you bless even the women that came and organized and made their commitment and their contribution, mighty God, to this move. We just want to thank you. We want to praise your name. We just want to glorify you, Abba, because God, you are a good and faithful God. And so, Lord, we thank you. And we say, Abba, cover this group. Let it grow in no other name but in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen and amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bless
that
you.
prayer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sean, you can stop the recording now.
I gotta wait till the prayer was